Mahashi's Global Family Chat. News of rising invincibility around the world. This is the news everyone needs to understand how the trends of time are changing towards peace and prosperity. Mahashi's Vedic technologies, Transcendental Meditation and its advanced program Yogic Flying are being implemented globally. Just the square root of 1% of the population practicing yogic flying together in a group is enough to raise the levels of harmony and coherence in the collective consciousness for the whole population. Enjoy the news of enlightenment dawning for every individual, invincibility for every nation, and peace for our dear world. Jai Gurudev, welcome to Mahashi's Global Family Chat. Today is the 13th of April 2020, and today it's a very great joy to welcome Dr. Keith Wallace. Dr. Wallace, as most of us know, was the first scientist of the age of enlightenment. Mahashi loved to appreciate him as that. His first research was published, I think, in 1972, and he has continued unabated since then. Dr. Wallace was also the first president of Mahashi International University, and he is the author of quite a number of books. He is currently Professor of Physiology and Health and Chair of the Department of Physiology and Health at Mahashi International University, of which he is also a trustee. And in recent years, Dr. Wallace has gone deeply into the subject of the gut microbiome, all the bugs that live in our digestive tract, and their influence on our health, and particularly at this time of coronavirus, our immunity. So it's really a joy to welcome Dr. Wallace, and please go ahead and inspire us with your always brilliant and deeply insightful news on this subject that is concerning everybody around the world, has led the whole world to shut down for the first time ever. Welcome, Dr. Wallace, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, I think this is an interesting moment of time in the history of the world. In our lifetimes, we've never had anything like it. I think back to my father's life in 1918, a good deal of his family was wiped out by the influenza, Spanish influenza, which at the time supposedly affected some 500 million people, about a third of the world's population, and some 50 million died. So that was huge and devastating. This is quite new for us. And as you said, we have a lot of microorganisms living in us. We have the whole gut microbiome, which is some 30 trillion bacteria, friendly bacteria. What's interesting is that we also have 10 times that many viruses within us. So we already have 300 trillion or more viruses in us. Many of them are inside the bacteria themselves. Now, we know right now that some bacteria are good, some are very, very bad. Same with viruses. Some we can live with them, obviously. Some are huge, very, very serious to our health. Up till now, the most contagious has been smallpox. But now the coronavirus, maybe not quite as contagious as smallpox, but getting close to it, is really baffling everyone around the world, how it affects the body. And we know that this coronavirus is one of 7 coronaviruses. There are 4 of them that only result in essentially the common cold. And then there's SARS, which in 2002 affected China and some other parts of the world, and MERS in 2012, primarily the Middle East. But their death toll was 700-800, nothing like what it is now. We're over 100,000 and over almost 2 million people affected by it. So this is something very different, and it's the 7th coronavirus. It has some characteristics which make it quite unusual in that it can manage to get inside our cells, primarily in the nasal tract and in the upper respiratory system. And there it hijacks cells. It gets into some particular receptor, the angiotensin converting enzyme 2 receptor, which is really throughout the whole body. It's something which has to do with blood pressure and other activities. And it manages to get in quite easily. But the interesting thing is, for most of the people, they're asymptomatic, or at least 50% can be asymptomatic. And that makes it even more dangerous because they are carriers and we don't even know they're carrying it. So it has this potential then of going from the upper respiratory into the lower, into the alveoli, which are these little sacs, air sacs, which the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place. And that's where a lot of damage can be done. They're very delicate. Now, what's interesting is the lung has its own microbiome, both in the upper respiratory and in the lower respiratory. And there's a communication between the gut microbes and the lung microbes. You have to imagine that the gut is now been implicated in almost every disease you can think of. And it has a huge to do with a huge effect on our immune system. In fact, 70 to 80% of our immune system lines the gut. So when you disturb something in the gut, it can have quite a dramatic effect throughout the whole body. We now know that maybe 50% of the people that get coronavirus, the virus itself is called the SARS-CoV-2, and the disease is COVID-19, but we all refer to it as coronavirus. If somebody gets it, it turns out now that one of the first symptoms, which people hadn't noted before, is diarrhea. And maybe 50% of the people get this. So it can affect the gut as well as the lung. We know it doesn't seem to be doing much damage in the gut, but we don't know exactly how it's involved with the gut. Is it getting through the defense of the microbiome in the gut? Is it getting through our epithelial cells? Is it causing some kind of leaky gut? Are particles leaking into the blood system? What are the microbiome doing when they're affected by this virus? Because we know, again, there are many other viruses in our gut. So is this virus setting off an atomic reaction in the gut that's then affecting other parts of the body? Nobody knows any of this. We do know that the gut microbiome does communicate with the lung microbiome. There are thousands of chemicals that are produced by the gut microbiome. They can affect the immune system, obviously. They can get into the blood system itself, and therefore they could get to the lung microbiome. So this crosstalk between the gut and the lung is something everybody's very interested in, but nobody's had even a slight chance to do the research on it yet. It used to be thought that the lung was sterile. Everybody knew there could be something in the upper respiratory tract, but the lower respiratory tract, everybody had the notion it was sterile. Now we know that there is a microbiome there. It's not as many, not the 30 trillion in our gut, a smaller number, but quite diverse. So we are very interested to know how this microbiome protects the lung, how it interacts with the immune cells, and how does this play out with the gut bacteria too. And I think that kind of our latest understanding is very much influenced by just the simple notion that this virus is very delicate. It is this huge killer in the world today, but actually as an individual entity, it's quite delicate. We wouldn't call it necessarily, it's right in between a living and non-living viruses. It's not a cell, it's more of a element, a particle. It has RNA in it. It has some proteins which surround it, and then it has a lipid surface to it, a surrounding. And it's at this lipid surface where it's most vulnerable, because if, for example, you disturb that, then you basically end up destroying the virus. So one of the main rules of Ayurveda, main prevention tools, is eliminate the causative agent. So if you simply wash your hands, don't touch your face, as I did once there, sorry, and keep your distance away from everyone, then you're taking a big step in prevention. And it's now very clear that the countries which have done very tedious but exact kind of analysis of who has the virus, who they came in contact with, tracing everything back and then isolating those people, they've had the most dramatic reduction of cases. So prevention is the key, and that is the kind of basis of Ayurveda. Just remove the causative agent. Wash your hands for those 20 seconds. That simple soap, so common, so easily obtainable, that soap destroys the fatty layer, virus is gone. So that's an amazing kind of fact that what we're dealing with, even though it's killing so many people, it's also very delicate, and it can be prevented with the correct measures. And we don't know what is going to happen in terms of all the different vaccines, what type of drugs will come out in terms of how they affect the delicate parts of the virus, whether they're antibodies, whether they're something else. So that's still a big unknown. But we can do a lot in just this simple prevention step. Now, the other thing we can do, which makes sense, is we can keep our body healthy. One thing, it turns out that 80% of the people who are dying have what's called comorbidity. That means they have one or more other diseases like high blood pressure, diabetes, something else. Also, in the older person, it seems as if the immune system is not behaving quite as well. You hear about these things, boost the immune system, but that actually is a kind of a complicated issue, because what you're getting with this particular virus is what's called a cytokine storm. These cytokines are the chemicals that are produced by our immune cells. We have a very sophisticated army, which has many different parts to it. It has the initial cells like the neutrophils or macrophages, which come in and basically attack a virus or a bacteria. They produce chemicals. These chemicals attract other cells. They enliven other parts of the immune system. This is our innate immune system, our initial stage of how we deal with a foreign invader. But ultimately, we go to what's called adaptive immunity, where we get a very sophisticated way of attacking these cells, either through cells or antibodies. Attacking these viruses or bacteria through cells like T cells or through antibodies produced by B cells. And so those systems are quite powerful, and we do believe that we will at some point get the ability to produce vaccines that can enliven these systems. We know if somebody gets coronavirus, it's likely they won't get it again, although still this is a big unknown right now. But the fact is they're producing antibodies. B cells in them are producing antibodies, and they now have a very sophisticated attack. But what happens to a lot of people is they never get to this stage. This adaptive immunity never kicks in. You're just working with this first stage of innate immunity. And for some reason, the immune system goes kind of crazy. This is where you get these cytokine storms. And we don't know why. We don't know why it happens in some people, why it doesn't happen in others. There's a number of previous studies I've seen. One was influenza A, where they gave it to people, and then they looked at exactly which genes were expressed, and then how that correlated with the symptoms. And in about 9 of the people, the whole thing was very normal. They could see that for the first few days after they got the virus, not much happened. And then finally, these different genes started turning on, and you started to get symptoms, classic symptoms of sniffling and colds and aching muscles, temperature, all these sorts of things that you get from the influenza virus, which is different than the coronavirus. But still, this is a model, so it gave us an idea of what happened. Now, that's 9 of the people. 8 of the people, totally different reaction by the immune system. The immune system maybe was kind of more aggressive right in the beginning. We don't know for sure. But when the virus came on, after a few days, it actually did what's called down-regulated. The immune system quieted down. So somehow they were able to eliminate the virus very quickly and then quiet down the immune system. These genes that got turned on in the other people actually got turned off in them. So how one reacts to a virus may depend upon something from Ayurveda, like your dosha, whether you're Vata, Pitta, Kapha, may depend upon your genetic makeup, and we know that those two are correlated. The doshas are correlated with your genes. But what we don't know is why some people react so strongly. We know that young people can get the virus and can die of it. Go into a hospital one day, they're let out, next day they die. Nobody knows why, in their sleep, they're just gone. We know that some older people, quite a bit older, can get this virus, and yet so very little symptoms. Almost nothing at all, maybe slight little sniffle, and that's it. So why? Why is that? Could it be a Pitta person their immune system is turned on more strongly all the time, they have more inflammation, that heat is expressing itself that way? I don't know for sure, but there are some people who can go to India, drink the water, eat the food, first time they're there, never have any problem at all. Other people even come near India and they get all kinds of diarrhea and other problems. So we all react differently to viruses and bacteria, depending upon our doshas and depending upon our genetics. And this is what has to be unraveled. What we do know is that with the coronavirus, the people that have the biggest problems, they have an overreaction from the immune system. It's not being regulated properly. It's overreacting. And so a lot of damage is being caused. And if it gets into the lower respiratory tract with the alveoli, then here you can get viral pneumonia. And then if the system gets weak, you can get a bacterial pneumonia on top of that. This basically makes it very difficult for the exchange of oxygen. That's why you have these ventilators, why you have all these outside devices that are being used to help people get more oxygen. But ultimately, you can get into a sepsis situation, you get septicemia, where the bacteria, whatever, get out into the other parts of the body and start to cause a lot of different damage. And the immune system isn't strong enough to deal with it. It's sort of energy has been expended in the lungs. But again, this is not everyone. It's a small percentage of the people, and almost all of them have some other type of disease that's going on. And so they are, in general, more susceptible to almost anything at that stage. They're often older, and maybe their immune systems, because of these other diseases, is not regulated properly, perhaps because of their microbiome has been upset from these other diseases, all the drugs, all the kind of energy it's taken out of them, and it's not really helping to regulate the immune system. We know from Ayurveda there's a substance called ojas, and it's talked about in Ayurveda as the finest product of digestion. We don't know what it is from a Western point of view. We haven't been able to identify it yet, what particular regulator of the immune system it is, but it's considered in Ayurveda as the most powerful regulator of the immune system. And perhaps it could increase the efficiency of the immune system so it doesn't get into this cytokine storm. You're not boosting it beyond all reason, but it's fine-tuning itself to react with just the right energy in the right place at the right time. That would be a wonderful thing to identify. As scientists, it's sort of our responsibility. It's also talked about, ojas is talked about in connection with another chemical that Maharishi used to talk about in lectures, soma. And these two are very related in a fascinating way. But they would both be very important for immunity, and they would both be very important for higher states of consciousness, which is interesting in itself. So what do we do to get more ojas? What do we to get more soma? Maharishi said you really need a stress-free nervous system and a stress-free digestive system. Very interesting that he combined these two at a time when nobody realized how important or how connected the gut-brain axis was. Now we know of this amazing communication between the gut and the brain, and we understand that the microbiome plays this enormous role in that gut-brain axis. So ojas then would be something we would imagine would be produced when the digestive system, nervous system are free from stress. The agni, that fire in the digestive system, is so strong, and the ama is reduced. So how could we improve that? Well, Maharishi focused on consciousness, and that is certainly a very powerful way to do it, and we'll talk more about that. But he also focused on Ayurveda and doing various things that could improve our digestion, things that can improve our agni, rekindle our agni. And these things involve all kinds of purification procedures like panchakarma, simple things like we're right now at a very kapha time. The kapha is built up from winter, and a very appropriate thing at this time is a kapha-reducing diet. In several of my books, I've talked about that, giving very specifically a kapha-reducing diet. It's something that somebody would have if they were doing panchakarma. And that's a very valuable thing right now to increase the strength of the digestive system. If this kapha builds up, can slow down digestion, then we get ama, then the immune system gets weakened. So this is a good time to improve some of our habits. We know from Ayurveda very simple things. Simple things like just getting to bed on time, having our main meal at noon, having maybe some ginger preparation right before we eat, eating in a certain fashion where we're more quiet, where we're more settled, we're not standing, we're not racing around, making sure we have proper exercise. Even indoors we can do exercise. Things like yoga, looking at each type. There could be a type of exercise for pitta, type for vata, type for kapha. And then most powerful of all is the consciousness approach. This is what Maharishi emphasized in Ayurveda the most. And really, right now, we're living in an incredibly stressed time. We've been addicted to stress. Stress goes in, it kind of comes in through our senses. We interpret the string as a snake. What am I going to do? And this goes right to particular areas in our brain. One area in particular, the amygdala, which is just all our fears and phobias, all those news programs you hear about coronavirus, just plugging right into the amygdala, setting off this fear response. If it's too strong, it just never even goes to the frontal cortex, to our kind of CEO, our thinking brain. It just goes right to our autonomic nervous system, sets off the sympathetic nervous system. We get adrenaline produced by our adrenal glands. We get the amygdala goes to the hypothalamus, sets all this off. It causes certain factors in the hypothalamus to go to the pituitary. Pituitary then releases a stimulating hormone that releases cortisol from the adrenal glands. We know cortisol dampens the immune system. It's not going to be good for us. It's not a time when we want to totally dampen. We want to regulate it, but we don't want to dampen it. And this is what cortisol and fear does. So obviously, this is a very important time that we should use not only the physical approaches, like diet, digestion, exercise, sleep, yoga, all these things, but we should also use the consciousness approaches like Transcendental Meditation. And it's a very special time in the sense that we're all inside, we're all in our houses, keeping this distance from everyone. So it's quite an inward moment in the history of the world. This addiction to stress and this outward activity is kind of sort of being forced out of us. And I would say, this is an opportunity for us to do something great in changing our lives. In terms of recommendations, there's a few that I would recommend for everyone. One, find a great teacher. We are very fortunate to have Maharishi. Everyone should have Maharishi, and everyone can have Maharishi. His tapes are more available than ever. The knowledge is more available than ever. Find a great teacher and follow that teacher. Get that wisdom. Have very clear intentions at this time. Know precisely what you want. What is important to you in life right now? Maybe it's your family, your health, obviously. Maybe money and fame are not quite as high up on the list at this moment in time. And then take this opportunity to change. Take this opportunity to your habits that you want to change. I consider TM as a super habit. I think it's the greatest habit anybody could have, and that having this habit helps you change any other habit. I think Ayurveda is filled with fantastic habits, and we have the opportunity to do that. In the last few books that I wrote with my wife and with my son Ted, The Coherence Code and Total Brain Coaching, we were focused entirely on using TM, using Ayurveda as a way of changing habits. This is a perfect time for that. I think what's being done in the Transcendental Meditation movement is fantastic. Dr. Tony Nader, for the last week, had a group meditation for everyone in the world. That was amazing. He did some very simple breathing exercises to lower stress if people weren't meditating before. He did some very simple techniques to help people. And then he was incredibly inclusive. He included everyone. So everyone could do their own practice and be part of this group. Dr. Bobby Roth also has his daily practice of Transcendental Meditation online. So these are huge initiatives of getting more people to meditate together, getting people to learn about Transcendental Meditation. There's amazing knowledge being given out there. Right now, Maharishi International University has lots of free online courses. There's a wonderful course that Dr. Karen Pearce and I did on Ayurveda. It's just she's a really, really brilliant doctor, lots of experience. She does a fantastic job in introducing Ayurveda. There's amazing courses by Dr. Tony Nader, and just a huge amount of knowledge from Maharishi, from the whole movement. Fantastic knowledge on Jyotish. This is a great, great time to learn, to really listen to what's going on in your body and adapt. And ultimately to create coherence, not only for yourself, but for the whole world through these different group practices. So it's an interesting time, terrible if you know people that have gone through it. I've known a number of people that have had it, and they got through quite easily. Some barely had any symptoms at all, but there will be others that much more tragic, and that is the nature of this time. And the best we can do is follow this kind of simple advice, remove the causative agent. This is Ayurveda. This is everything you see on television. Dr. Raina Pisha has done this on the Global Family Chat. It's very simple. Wash the hands, keep the distance, don't touch the face. This is not hard. This virus is delicate. You can fight it quite effectively. And then take the time to build up your immunity. There is this communication between the gut microbiome and the lung microbiome. We don't know all the details, but we have Ayurveda, which is this huge wealth of knowledge to make us stronger, to improve our lives. And we have all these different approaches from Ayurveda, including the consciousness approach, Transcendental Meditation. We don't want stress, not good for our immune system. So take advantage of something that will reduce stress, will create different chemicals in our brain. Hopefully ojas, hopefully soma. Soma, we could say, is the consciousness counterpart of ojas. Ojas is considered to be the finest product of digestion in Ayurveda. It's a biochemical, it's a concrete substance, but it's also subtle. It holds together vata, pitta, and kapha. It holds together the various dhatus. It's something which enlivens every part. And soma is its counterpart in consciousness. As Maharishi said, the glue of the universe. Something so universal, connected with bliss consciousness. Something so powerful that it is there right in the flow of Rishi Devata and Chandas, at the most subtle aspects of consciousness moving within itself. Now, in the past, Maharishi, in early 70s, Maharishi talked about soma as being also a concrete chemical. And then later years, he kind of gave that over to ojas, saying that they were really one and the other. One is just kind of the subtle aspect, and this is the more manifest aspect. But still, this is something we can control within ourselves. We can meditate, we can live a better lifestyle, we can produce ojas, we can enliven soma within us. And one thing, it helps us in terms of immunity, but even better, it gives us the experience, Maharishi says, of celestial perception. This is when the nervous system is free of stress, digestive system is free of stress, then we start producing soma ojas, this chemical. And this is Maharishi's great brilliance. Over all these years, Maharishi has always connected the most abstract with the most concrete. He said enlightenment was nothing but neurophysiological refinement. Here he's saying that higher states of consciousness, these higher levels of enlightenment, are based upon a chemical being produced in our body and brain. And this kind of notion that a chemical gives rise to a mental state is so in tune with all the current thinking. We know that all our moods, all our behavior, everything is based on the balance of neurochemicals. We have serotonin, which gives us a good feeling. We have cortisol, stress hormone, that has this bad effect on the body. We have adrenaline, which excites us, noradrenaline, again, excitatory. We have dopamine that's connected with the anticipation of reward. We have all these different chemicals and almost everything we can think about. Endorphins, these are the natural painkillers of the body. If you're running a race, your body, to stop the pain that might come from the exercise, produces endorphins, natural painkillers. Our body's like a pharmacy. It's producing all kinds of chemicals. We just didn't know that the very best product is ojas and soma, and that's within our grasp, just through our own meditation, our own lifestyle, our own behavior, that we can create a chemical that can support transcending, support cosmic consciousness, and even in cosmic consciousness, suddenly it's produced at a very fine, powerful level, and that gives rise to these higher states of consciousness, God consciousness, and unity. So by focusing our attention on that which can enliven the inner intelligence within us, we not only can help protect ourselves from whatever is out there in the world, and who knows, the coronavirus is one. We're in this weird world where animal viruses, which should have stayed in animals, somehow got off to humans. I mean, it's insanely ridiculous that the natural law has been broken so badly that, but we don't know what's coming next. We don't know coronavirus itself. It's so contagious, so clever, so has such an amazing ability to be in people that are asymptomatic and therefore easily spread, that we don't know when it's going to go away. We don't know whether it may take everyone to some extent being exposed to it, unless we come up with a vaccine fairly soon or particular types of chemicals that could help destroy it. So it's a delicate time, but it's a great opportunity. Take advantage of all these group programs that are being offered. Be part of this movement to create coherence in the world, coherence in our brain, coherence in the whole world. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wallace. This is so inspiring, so deeply wise and knowledgeful. I have two questions. Firstly, one of the beautiful points that you brought out is that this is a great time to assess our lives and to see where we want to go and to change our habits. Can you speak a little more about how to change our habits?
Yeah, this has been the topic of our last two books, The Coherence Code and Total Brain Coaching. And it's a very interesting topic because I think, we assume, many people when they started Transcendental Meditation assume, okay, well, that's all I have to do in life. But it turns out that if you eat improperly and you don't exercise, your body doesn't like that. So you actually have to do a few more things. It turns out that learning TM is probably the greatest habit you could have ever learned. Now, if somebody had told you, oh, come to my introductory lecture, I'm going to teach you a new habit, people would have run away from those lectures. Instead, Maharishi told the world, come and get enlightened. Now that was very appealing. Come reduce stress. Come increase your performance. That's very, very appealing. But one of the side benefits of learning Transcendental Meditation is you learn a habit. And the way it's taught is so interesting because it's the way Ayurveda kind of teaches the way habits should be changed. First of all, you have to be receptive. That's number one. So you have to be enticed into it. You have to have a reason for doing it. Habits are not trivial. Habits are like highways in the brain. If you think of a, 3, 4 lane, 5 lane highway, it's like that. That's what a habit is. When you learn it usually at a young age, and it's reinforced over and over and over again. Maybe you learn the habit, I need to be on time. So maybe your mother says you have to be on time. Your father says you have to be on time. Rest of your life, you're on time, whether you like it or not. Because this is a highway that's very deeply in your brain. That's where all that information wants to go. So how do you change that habit? Maybe you just want to be on time, you don't change it. But maybe it's a little stressful. You'd like to be more flexible. Maybe you'd like to, be more in tune with your wife, who might take a little longer getting ready. And maybe she's right. There's no need to rush quite like that. So it's all very reasonable. So what do I do? How do I change this? I'm doing my meditation. I'm eating well, but how do I get this one? And you really have to have clear intentions. You have to have a desire to change. You literally have to write it out in some way. Okay, I'd like to change this habit. Maybe I'd like to lose weight. Say you're overweight. So, okay, that's a clear intention. Okay, you're meditating, you're doing Ayurveda. But you want to do a little more. Could there be something more I could do so I could be healthier? So then you write that out and you say, maybe you do like a habit map, and you kind of identify a plan in that map. So what are all the things you could do? Well, I could eat less. I could eat different types of food. I could be more careful on having my main meal at noon, lighter meal. I could be more seasonal, like now kapha reducing time. I could go on a special diet now. I could see whether certain foods are upsetting my microbiome, because maybe this weight thing has nothing to do with, how much I eat. Maybe it's more to do with my agni is reduced and my microbiome is not really strong. So somehow I'm not digesting the foods properly. Maybe I'm lactose intolerant. Maybe I can't eat gluten. Maybe I'm having too much sugar. So there's so many different variables. So you have to then isolate what you're going to do. And this is very self-referral habit change. You have to actually experiment, because you can read hundreds of books out there how to lose weight. They might work for this guy and they might work for this other lady, but they don't work for you. So why is that? You might take one probiotic. Oh, some guy gets fantastic results, another, but doesn't work for you. So you have to experiment. You have to determine, is this food good for you? Is this food not good for you? And you have to do it with knowledge. So you take the perspective, am I a Vata, am I a Pitta, and am I a Kapha? Because each one is going to have a different relationship to the food. As a Kapha, my metabolism's slow, take a long time. Pitta, I'll burn through very quickly. Vata, I will eat a little bit, but if I get out of balance, I can gain weight quickly. So any one of these types, when they're out of balance, can gain weight. So we want to know who we are, discover who we are. We want to make a plan that's going to work for us, that's based, like if I'm a Pitta person, easy for me to change habits. Most habit change books are written by Pitta people for Pitta people. They love discipline. They love to make changes. What about the Vatas and the Kaphas? Or if I have some Vata and some Kapha in me? So, these are all very subtle and important things which you have to take into account. Now, Ayurveda would also say, do it in an easy fashion. So learning TM, you come to a couple introductory lectures, no big changes in your lifestyle. You learn a simple technique. It's very Ayurvedic, learning something in a quite easy, manageable form. And you do it with some enticement. Everything is positive. It's all reinforcing, no negative fear. But hey, you're going to get benefits from this, all kinds of side benefits. We're going to do it in steps. We're going to do it with this kind of instruction. We're going to be able to talk about your experiences. You're essentially being coached. And it's very good in habit change to be coached, either self-coached or by a friend or by a professional coach. In this day and age, there's a fitness coach, there's a diet coach, there's an everything coach. And in some interesting way, learning TM, a qualified TM teacher, although it's a very short period of coaching, is helping you. They are giving you very precise instructions as given to them by Maharishi, and they're giving it in such a way where there's an interaction, where they can ask questions, you can ask them questions, and this unfolds a knowledge. And you essentially have that person for the rest of your life. Many people come back to their TM teachers years and years later, asking them questions about life, because the TM teacher has a very, very huge body of knowledge from the Gita, from the Science of Being, all these lectures by Maharishi. He's given enormous knowledge, almost every area in life. And you add Ayurveda to that, and now you have a health coach. You have a life coach, a health coach, you have all kinds of things combined. So learning TM, terrific for changing habits. But still then, if you're already doing TM, make a plan, do it in a very simple and precise way. You have to have your attention on it. You can't have it divided. You have to put your attention on it, do very small steps in a very simple way, make a plan. And then you do need to be aware of your own routines in life, because how you interact with your environment, the environment can have a big effect on you. So you might have to remove things from the kitchen. Just don't have them around. Certain kinds of foods, they're kapha producing, or if there's some food you find that's not good for you. You have to be in the sense of experimentation, that I'm going to try something, I'm going to get feedback, and then I'm going to go on. So an elimination diet is often good. I eliminate certain foods for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I reintroduce them, see how they affect my body. And then some type of coaching is very valuable. Whether it's a health coach, like an Ayurveda coach, our university, Maharishi International University, we've got 200-300. We're going to have probably 600 in a few years, health coaches that we're going to be graduating who are very skilled in Ayurveda. So these people will be available for you to give you enormous knowledge, well, how this food might affect you, how the spice might affect you. And, you know, the key to all of this is staying in balance. It's very hard to change habits if you're out of balance. If your vata is out of whack, if your pitta is out of whack, you're not going to be very focused on changing your habit. You're not going to be able to follow through with a simple plan. You're going to be looking for comfort foods. You're going to be doing all kinds of things, you know, watching lots of television, whatever, things that are kind of damping down your stress and trying to kind of keep you in balance. They don't really work, but they're temporary ways of alleviating the imbalance you feel inside you. So it's valuable to have a coach. It could just be a buddy, could be a friend that you do it with and you do it together. Okay, we're both going to lose weight at this time. We'll call each other each day. And you don't ask, well, how much weight have you been lost? I mean, that's okay. It's good. That's an objective measure. You can do it. But you ask, have I given 100% to this? What did I do today? Did I really do? Like if I found that if I ate less and if I made sure I, like say, every bite I had, I was paying attention. I just didn't shovel the food into me, but I put my fork down, paid attention to chewing, was careful eating again, you know, doing all the right Ayurvedic things so that my digestion better, maybe taking some probiotics, couple of little things like that would help digestion, eliminate some foods. How did that work? And so then did I do my 100% on that? And then in the end, you need to celebrate. You get through a week, you get through 2 weeks, you lost 5 pounds, you feel better. Celebrate. Doesn't have to be something that's going to gain weight right away. It could be something else, but something that's comfortable, nice, makes you feel happy. Positive reinforcement is the key to habit change. Negative reinforcement may work temporarily, but not in the long run. So this kind of positive reinforcement is very, very valuable. So that's a very short synopsis of what's in these 2 books, The Coherence Code and Total Brain Coaching, but it's very much focused on helping people who want to be helped. They may be already doing TM. They may know something about Ayurveda, but this really hones them in. And they're set often in business settings, so you can see what it's like under a high stress situation. The first book is a story. The second book is kind of a how-to manual. But I think habit change is a very valuable thing. I think it's an integral part of Ayurveda. I think all the health coaches that we are graduating are going to be very good at helping you change habits. And I think ultimately with TM and Ayurveda, if you can learn all the wonderful habits in Ayurveda, even the behavioral scientists, wonderful things that they have to offer. every aspect of your life will get better.
Thank you, Dr. Wallace. I think one thing you said there in this, as you said, brief overview of how to change habits is that the key is staying in balance. So don't go off and get out of balance as you change your life, and because then you'll wobble and you'll go more out of balance, and that will be counterproductive. So this was very valuable. And my second question is more of a comment. You said earlier that people who have the biggest problems with COVID-19, with the coronavirus, their immune systems are overreacting. And this immediately made me think of your original research published 1972, which was on it showed for the first time the experience, the physiology of restful alertness. When we transcend, when we settle down during meditation, mind and body settle down, then the body gets deep rest, but we become extraordinarily alert. And this sounded to me as though this is exactly what is needed in the immune system. Would you like to comment?
Yes. Sure, no, I'd love to. Yeah, just a minor correction. The first paper in Science was 1970, and then 1971 was American Journal of Physiology. 1972 was the Scientific American article. I think what you're saying is brilliant. I think ultimately Maharishi taught us the coexistence of opposite values. It's a very profound principle. It's there in physiology, it's there in ecology. You talk about homeostasis. That's this ability to have internal stability, but to be able to adapt to external change. And so staying in balance is a very, very, very important thing. For a Pitta person, it might mean that person eats his meals on time. Just something that's simple. And I think of Ayurveda as being epigenetic. This is something Hari Sharma brought out in a beautiful article, that it's as if they had this ancient knowledge of how certain environmental stimuli could trigger genes within you. And these genes then would set off a whole cascading series of events. So we know with a Pitta person, if they don't eat on time, they can get angry. We don't know all the steps that are involved there, but it's very much like an epigenetic kind of thing. If you can adjust how the person behaves, that can keep them in balance. Likewise, a Vata person, if you keep them out of the wind and the cold and they can sip hot water, something ridiculously as simple as that can help keep them in balance. In a Kapha person, the opposite. They have to be more active. They have to get out more. And so Ayurveda is filled with marvelous little things to help us stay in balance. But the ultimate goal in Ayurveda is to reach enlightenment, to reach this higher state of consciousness, which is characterized by, as you said, restful alertness, and particularly cosmic consciousness, which is characterized by complete inner stability, unbounded bliss consciousness, and yet you're completely active in the world at the same time. The nervous system is doing two simultaneous things. One is it's maintaining unbounded consciousness, this state of unlimited creative potential, and on the other hand, very coherent state. On the other hand, it's engaging in the world, whether you're waking, dreaming, or sleeping. So this is the ultimate agility in the world, the ultimate adaptive state of the world, where you have pure inner stability at the basis of outer activity, inner restfulness at the basis of outer activity. And Maharishi would say so beautifully that it's like, drawing back the bow. You pull back the bow to the state of complete quiet inner restfulness in order to release the arrow. How does Arjuna get enlightened? He gets enlightened on the battlefield. He's a warrior about to get engaged in one of the biggest battles of time, and he learns to meditate right there. Nistre gunyo bhav Arjuna. Be without the three gunas. Yoga star kuru karmani. Established in yoga, established in the silence, come out and perform action. So just as you say, this is the ultimate habit. Maharishi used to talk about being habituated to behave in such a way that all your actions are in accord with natural law. It is sort of an habituation that happens from transcending. Transcend, 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 transcend. You just become infused with that bliss consciousness. You just become connected with the cosmic computer, habituated to that experience. So when you come out into activity, you dip the cloth into the dye, bring it out to the sun, hold it up to the sunlight, and now some dye remains. Just dip it again, more and more. The more we become habituated to pure consciousness during our practice of transcendental meditation or the more advanced techniques, the more in activity we can behave in such a way that we behave in accord with natural law. We're amazingly flexible. We have maximum free will. We're the will of nature. We are able to behave with incredibly dynamic and spontaneous based on this inner restful state.
I think we could go on for quite some time, but we've reached a point where we should close. So I want to thank you very much. It's been such a joy, really ranging so smoothly and with such a fascinating detail between the modern biochemistry and physiology and health, and then the knowledge of the microbiome and all the viruses, and then consciousness and enlightenment. It's really Mahashi's knowledge all brought together in one package, which it always is. And you do it so beautifully, bringing it all together and giving such an inspiring vision of our reality from Maharshi, which is to live that life of balance and to use that ultimate habit, which is meditating every day and gaining cosmic consciousness, that coexistence of the extreme opposites, as you just said. So thank you so much, and we look forward to the next time, Dr. Wallace.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Jai Gurudev. All
Jai
glory
Gurudev.
to Mahashiji, and we end now by ringing the bell of invincibility for every individual to have that cosmic consciousness, and for every nation to have the equivalent, which is complete stability and adaptability. Jai Gurudev.
Heaven is descending, descending on the earth. Heaven is descending, descending on the earth. Heaven on earth, heaven on earth, heaven on earth. Heaven is descending, descending on the earth. Light of God is bringing heaven on earth. Gurudev's grace is bringing heaven on earth. Heaven on earth, heaven on earth, heaven on earth. Light of God is bringing heaven on earth. descending, descending on the earth. Heaven on earth, heaven on earth, heaven on earth. Heaven is descending, descending on the earth. Heaven is descending, descending on the earth. Buddha's grace is free.